For sure. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. I'm meeting today's guest for the first time, but he works with my own personal lifestyle medicine doctor, Dr. Wayne Geisinger. His name is Dr. Ryan Herring, and please welcome him to the show. It's so nice to meet you. Are you sure you're old enough to be a doctor?
You know, you're not the first person to ask me that, Chef AJ.
Is it because you're young, or is it because you have such an incredible lifestyle that you look this young?
Yeah, I like to think both. But yeah, I appreciate the introduction there and for having me on your show. I'm really excited for our discussion today.
I can't wait, because that is so cool that, I mean, you specifically, if I understand correctly, I only was able to catch one interview with you because there's not a lot out there yet, but you specifically went to medical school to do lifestyle medicine.
That's right, yeah. So my journey into lifestyle medicine, I'd say actually even started before medical school. I became aware of this field of lifestyle medicine, and it just attracted me so much. And I think you'll appreciate this a lot in the fact that the first person who really got my attention about nutrition and lifestyle medicine was actually John McDougall.
And he was on yesterday for 3.5 hours.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
so actually I'd watched a TED talk of his and was just completely inspired by the work he was doing and the lives he was changing with his style of practice. So yeah, I trained at Loma Linda University for residency, and we had a specific lifestyle medicine residency curriculum. So more and more doctors around the country are learning about lifestyle medicine. They're actually getting the training, which is really exciting.
That
And
is fantastic. Well, when you think about it, both my brothers are doctors, and medical school really isn't designed to teach you how to prevent disease, really mostly to diagnose and treat it. Is that not accurate?
that is accurate. It's slowly changing. We're getting more of this lifestyle medicine education into medical schools and even some colleges. And I'm going to be talking about of how that's happening and different resources that patients can even use to find a lifestyle medicine provider in their area. So I think I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen here.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I believe you're seeing the title slide there.
Yep.
So we're going to be talking about primary care and lifestyle medicine, and specifically for millennials and Gen Z, so younger generations, and how we can better connect with them in terms of healthcare. So our agenda for today, we're going to be looking at what do millennials and Gen Zs actually want out of their healthcare, trends in their health, both before and even during the pandemic, and why I really feel that lifestyle medicine, the lifestyle medicine approach is really ideal to deliver more desirable primary care to them. And we'll look actually at a patient case using lifestyle medicine. So, if you're watching this, you probably know which generation that you were born in. I'm a millennial here, and so I'm a young millennial doctor. And so I'm actually interacting and taking care of patients from all of these generations, which is really exciting for me. And so I'm learning more and more about how each generation tends to interact with the healthcare system and really what they want out of their healthcare. I think that millennials and Gen Zs and even younger populations are particularly interesting and relevant from a healthcare standpoint because they're making up more than 50% of the US population. And so as they are going to age, they're going to place greater and greater demands on the healthcare system. So we really need to know how to best take care of them and how to deliver good preventive care to them. And this is really why I'm so passionate about preventive medicine and why I trained in preventive medicine. These generations, the younger generations, they grew up with the internet and the computer and social media, and in many ways, their lives have been completely shaped by their interaction with these digital technologies. And naturally, this is often their go-to source for health information, as compared to maybe older generations who would go directly to their doctor, because really they didn't have so much accessible information. So you can see that millennials especially are actually the largest generation right now. They make up the largest part of the workforce. And so we really need to be thinking about how can we best take care of their health. So let's take a look at generational healthcare needs here. We really need to know how to engage different generations to really meet their needs. So we have on the left there, baby boomer Bob. You can say he's 67 years old. And then on the right, we have a Gen Zer, Olivia. She's much younger. She's 23 years old. So these two figures actually give us good information about how they tend to interact with the healthcare system. So Bob's main concerns typically when he would seek out healthcare is he's really looking for trust in his provider, quality of care, in his specific health conditions. Whereas Olivia, in the younger generation, she's really concerned about mental health, having resources for that, decision-making, convenience, and time. So what Bob ultimately wants out of his provider is a high reputation, and he typically finds that out by word of mouth. He's looking for trustworthiness and high quality care, whereas Olivia, she's really looking for more digital options, things like telemedicine, virtual care, good preventive care, and more holistic health care. Bob is most likely to make his health decisions, again, based on word of mouth recommendations, and the relationship that he has with his longstanding doctor. Whereas Olivia may turn to her parents for help, asking them for guidance, and then she'll also turn to the internet more likely, and social media, looking for information about specific health concerns that she might have. So if we look at younger generations in our current healthcare system, you can see that over 10 million millennials and Gen Zs are actually uninsured right now, or at least as of 2020, and more than a third do not have a primary care doctor. And when they're surveyed, we see that these younger generations are actually increasingly dissatisfied with the traditional healthcare system, much like a lot of patients are. They're dissatisfied with the effectiveness of conventional treatments, and what they really value are convenience, affordability, virtual care options, and digital communication, being able to do things like text message the office. And they really prefer a more holistic approach to their health. So an interesting report was published by Blue Cross Blue Shield in 2019, really taking a deeper look at the health of millennials. And overall, 83% of millennials actually felt like they were in good or excellent health. But what really may surprise, I think, a lot of viewers here is that the decline in health is appearing to start much sooner in life, and even sooner than younger generations. So the Blue Cross Blue Shield has something called their health index. You can see there on the y-axis of the graph. This is actually a way to quantify over 300 different health conditions, different diseases that are actually affecting the health of millennials and their quality of life. And they actually are able to assign a score to that from 0 to 100 to say what percentage of people in a given age range are actually living at their optimal health. So we can see that millennials on average have a health index of about 95, meaning that they're living at 95% of their optimal health. But starting around age 27 there, you can see that there's a relatively greater decline in health that starts. And that's related to different physical and mental health conditions. And these are having a greater impact on younger generations' health and quality of life, and sooner in life than previous generations. So this figure is again from the Blue Cross Blue Shield study, showing what the top 10 health conditions that are affecting millennials are. You can see that the majority of them are actually related to behavioral health, or our mental health and emotional well-being, whereas the other four are more related to physical conditions like the cardiovascular system, digestive system, and endocrine system. And you can see from 2014 there in the first column there to 2017, there was fairly significant jumps in the number of millennials that are being affected by these different health conditions, especially things like depression, hyperactivity, and type 2 diabetes. But I think what's really important to know is that having a behavioral health condition actually makes you about twice as likely to have these different physical conditions like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, heart disease, and inflammatory bowel disease. So there's a huge connection between our mental health and our physical health. So we really want to be thinking about how can we address both of those to help our patients feel their best. I think one of the most concerning health effects of the COVID-19 pandemic has really been the emotional burden on everyone, especially younger generations. And this is coming from the Deloitte Global Millennial and Gen Z survey. And what's really interesting about this survey is that they actually surveyed younger generations before and at different points during the pandemic. So prior to the pandemic, at least 48% of Gen Zs and 44% of millennials said that they felt stressed or had emotional distress all or most of the time. So huge numbers. What's surprising is that at the beginning of the pandemic, when they were surveyed about April of 2020, we actually saw a decrease in the stress levels that they were reporting. And there's a variety of reasons why that could have been. You know, maybe they were spending more time at home, more time with their families, they weren't commuting, they were actually feeling less stress in general. But then when these younger generations were surveyed again at the beginning of 2021, so as the pandemic sort of dragged on, we saw that their stress levels returned to pre-pandemic levels, if not worsened. And women are actually experiencing higher stress levels than men, significantly higher. At least 54% of Gen Z women and 45% of millennial women are saying that they feel stressed or anxious all or most of the time as compared to men. Almost half of all millennials and Gen Zs have actually taken time off from work because of mental health reasons. And they felt that they had to actually tell their employer that there was a different reason why they were taking time off of work. So clearly, there's still a huge stigma, especially at work, related to mental health. And despite more discussion about mental health during the pandemic, this stigma really continues. You can see what the top stress drivers are, or what was reported. And these are primarily related to thinking about the welfare of your family, the long-term financial future, and uncertainty about, when the pandemic ends. Other things related to job, finances, the physical and mental health, as well as the social and political climate. Now, the mental health challenges in younger generations, I think, are really concerning, because the US Surgeon General actually released this public health advisory in December of 2021, calling for action, really, to address this youth mental health crisis. And I think that Dr. Murthy here really said it best, saying that, coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic and moving forward, we really need to focus our attention on our common values, putting people first and strengthening our connections to each other. The pandemic has also really helped us better understand, what are younger people most concerned about. This is again data from the Deloitte Global Millennial and Gen Z survey. You can see that both millennials and Gen Zs have very, very common personal concerns. The only difference there being that millennials' top concern seems to be their healthcare and thinking about disease prevention, whereas even younger generations are actually thinking more about climate change and protecting the environment. So it's really useful, I think, to know what these personal concerns are and think about how can we actually apply them in our healthcare system. So there's no question that our path forward, with the pandemic and life in general, is really should be focused on rebuilding our connectedness. And from a healthcare standpoint, I really think we must be able to market and connect with millennials and Gen Zs by providing them more desirable primary care, giving them what they really want, and really creating a space for them to feel heard and cared for. And to me, this is really where the lifestyle medicine approach in primary care has tremendous potential, because we're focusing on the whole person. So this is the treatment triangle. This is what we use in our practice at Lifestyle Medical. You can see that lifestyle forms the base of the treatment triangle there. And there's really 4 areas there, what we call our 4 lifestyle vital signs, in areas of nourishment, movement, resilience, and connectedness. And the reason that these areas form the base of the triangle is we know that the vast majority of chronic disease is actually rooted in our lifestyle choices here. And so it only makes sense that these areas should be the foundation of our treatment. And it just so happens that these areas are the lowest risk and they're the lowest cost. At the top of the triangle there, you can see surgery and medications. This is really where most of mainstream medicine operates. And the reality is this is where most doctors are trained. Now, these are useful tools in medicine, right? We know that patients benefit from these tools in terms of their quality of life, but they're really not treating the root cause of disease. So we're really rethinking and reshaping the way we're delivering healthcare here. And then in the middle of the triangle there's physiology. So we want to think about how can we actually use other natural therapies and even evidence-based supplements to help restore physiology. So let's take a little bit deeper look into these different lifestyle interventions. Now, it's important to know that these are evidence-based lifestyle intervention, and I think that that's really key to understand. The 4 key areas here are nourishment, movement, resilience, and connectedness. And we're going to take a little bit deeper look at each one of those. But I think that these things are all extremely relatable. They're easy to understand for most patients, but actually delivering them in the healthcare system is something that we're still working on, making this more mainstream. So nourishment, this actually includes more than just nutrition, but it's looking at the food that we're eating, also water, the things that we're drinking, but really anything that goes into our system, including tobacco, other harmful substances, and even pollutants. I think that there's more and more science and research looking at the role of even environmental toxins and how that affects our health. The handout that you're seeing there, the Daily Dozen, is a frequent handout we actually use at Lifestyle Medical, and something that I pretty much give to all of my patients here. And I think it's a really acceptable approach for most patients, because we're really focusing on actually increasing the foods that we know can actually improve health. And that you can see that it's focused on whole natural plant foods there. And from a behavior change standpoint, I think that this really makes a lot of sense, because we're really helping patients take progressive steps to getting more and more of these foods on their plate. And we know that they can be extremely therapeutic in terms of disease reversal. And from a weight loss standpoint, that this takes advantage of a shift to more higher volume foods, but actually lower calorie density. So it's a much more sustainable approach to weight loss by focusing on overall food quality. I think that if I take a look at the handout there, the foods that tend to give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of what is affecting most patients, the foods at the top of the handout there are the foods really most associated with improvement in our health. And from a longevity standpoint there, especially legumes, berries, lots of cruciferous vegetables like cabbage, cauliflower, and broccoli, and lots of dark leafy greens, giving you a lot of bang for your buck in terms of nutrition. The next lifestyle vital sign is what we call movement. So this includes our physical activity, cardiovascular, strength training, and flexibility, but also something called naturotherapy, or actually getting out in the sunshine, getting fresh air, our activities of daily living, and really, frankly, just not sitting. So one of the biggest challenges I see in a lot of my patients is not sitting throughout the day, right? And we can think of this as being like an active couch potato, where you might be doing, moderate or intense exercise for 30 to 60 minutes during the day, but then, what are you doing the rest of the day, right? A lot of our jobs require us to be sitting. I like the idea of doing micro bursts of activity. So actually breaking up your day with things like short walks, even doing what's called deskercise, literally doing exercises at your seated desk, like body weight squats. So I'm curious, Chef AJ, what is your favorite type of exercise, if you have one?
Jumping to conclusions. No, I don't really like exercise. The only thing I ever liked was pickleball, and I tore my rotator cuff and I'm banned from playing now. But I do like yoga, but I don't really consider that exercise. I consider that more like for mental thing, mental, I don't know, it's just very relaxing. But I do spin an hour a day, whether I like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
At a high intensity standing up. That's something that I'm able to commit to and do every day. I got a spin bike, but I'm going to be honest, I don't like exercise, but I still do it. And that's the point. I didn't like eating vegetables either, but I still do it.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, which is that we really want to find an exercise that we enjoy, right? Because that's the one you're most likely to stick to. And yoga in particular, I think you're right, has a ton of benefits in terms of our resilience and our emotional health, but you are actually building a lot of good strength and flexibility with yoga. So if yoga is your favorite exercise, I say go for it. I tend to go for more of the strength training and a little bit of cardiovascular training as well. But when I'm working with patients, the most important thing is really finding a type of exercise that you enjoy. So our next lifestyle vital sign is something we call resilience. And this is really my favorite lifestyle medicine vital sign to talk to patients about, because it gives you so much insight about someone's life as a whole. So there's really three core areas here, and those are restorative sleep, stress management, and getting rest or renewal. So the scientific evidence for getting consistent restorative sleep is really significant, and it's growing, particularly for our cognitive health and our emotional health. So, if you're someone who feels like they can make it on 5 hours of sleep a night, the reality is you're probably robbing yourself of achieving optimal health and performance. And we know that sleep deprivation is also linked to our food choices. So we tend to seek out more food when we're sleep deprived. It negatively impacts our mood, our anxiety levels, and our productivity. But it's not just sleep, it's really giving ourselves the opportunity for rest and renewal. So you can imagine, even if you're sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night, you could still be exhausting yourself because you're just not giving yourself that chance for renewal emotionally. So I would just encourage you to ask yourself, are you actually making enough time to decompress from work, social media, the news? And if you're not, I highly recommend trying out some of these different stress management techniques. And meditation and mindfulness, different mindfulness practices, have the most scientific evidence for them. And we know that they enhance the body's ability to recover from physical and emotional stress. And they can actually even tone down the stress response in the body, making you more efficient of how you're responding to stress in your life. So there's a variety of techniques for releasing and replacing as well. And I find that they are very valuable. I'm getting patients to think about these, and it could be as simple as making moments in your day, right? Just taking a few moments to break up your day, pausing, doing a few deep breaths, trying to recenter yourself. That can make a huge difference in your emotional health. And the fourth lifestyle medicine vital sign here is what we're calling connectedness. And this really includes social supports and your spiritual supports. The most successful lifestyle medicine interventions are actually done in community, in groups. And Dean Ornish really recognized this as being the magic of lifestyle medicine. So in our practice, we're consistently trying to help our patients actually build their community and build their support systems. And we have a variety of things that we can connect them with in the community, as well as within our practice with some of our different groups, which I think that you've been involved with, Chef AJ, and I know that Nan, who's a friend of yours, is heavily involved with this as well, leading different culinary classes and other areas related to health. So not only is it important to connect with each other as humans, but we also want to place value in what we're calling vertical connectedness. So just thinking about what brings you purpose and meaning in your life, what makes you feel like you have better presence in your life, and we include spiritual care here as well. So you might think of this as having a higher power, and thinking about this as living your life for that purpose, and thinking about things that are greater than yourself. So taking all that in, you can see your viewers are probably thinking about, these different areas and which of them they may be interested in working on. So let's take a look at an actual patient case here. So we're going to talk about a patient who we're calling Samantha. She's a 30-year-old female. And when I first met Samantha, these were her medical diagnosis here. She had high cholesterol, elevated liver enzymes, a lot of work-related stress, and she was having excess weight. Some of her initial health data, you can see elevated cholesterol, especially her LDL cholesterol was about 160, and she had some elevated liver enzymes. So with all of our patients, what we do at Lifestyle Medical is we really get a very detailed lifestyle history, because we really want to understand how these areas fit into someone's life and where there might be opportunities to work on things. So Samantha's initial lifestyle vital signs, there were a couple opportunities that I saw here to intervene. And so she was actually already eating a vegan diet, but it was a mostly processed vegan diet. I think that this is a really important thing to highlight, that simply eating vegan may not actually be health promoting if it's too highly processed, not including enough of those whole unprocessed plant foods that we saw earlier. Samantha is also pretty inactive and had a lot of stress from working long work hours and a lot of difficulty decompressing. So we had a long discussion about this and developed this specific lifestyle prescription to work on these things. And this is what we talked about. You can see that the lifestyle prescription really focused on changing the quality of the diet. So more of a whole food plant-based diet, at least 80% unprocessed, lifting weights at least 3 days a week with her husband, going on walks with her husband a couple times a week, and then doing a coffee date once a week with close friends. So you can see we're tackling actually multiple areas here, not just the food quality, but figuring out ways for Samantha to decompress with more exercise, and especially improving her connectedness with her husband and her social support system. And I just want to highlight this here. This is actually one of Samantha's favorite recipes here. Chef AJ, I think you might appreciate this. This is one of my particularly favorite recipes from the Forks Over Knives meal planner app, which I highly recommend here. Chef AJ's red lentil chili, which is super delicious, and it's one of my favorite meals. So you can see, look at this change in the health data of Samantha over a 6-month period. She lowered her cholesterol significantly here, got her LDL cholesterol under 100 with these lifestyle changes, dropped her triglycerides, actually reversed her elevated liver enzymes. But most importantly, I think Samantha was really able to find greater love and joy in her life. And she was able to do that by building more connectedness, working on these lifestyle areas. She lost weight, about 15 pounds. She gained lean muscle. She figured out ways to set boundaries with work. So we got all these different lifestyle areas really working synergistically to help Samantha feel her best. I just want to highlight, at Lifestyle Medical, I really feel that we're more than a typical doctor's office here. We really try to build real relationships with our patients, and we're able to do that by having a little bit longer appointment slots with patients, both in-person and virtual options. We're always available. We have 24/7 phone available, emails, and we use an app that you can actually message your doctor through. We have same day, next day appointments, so we are actually able to save patients' trips to the urgent care a lot of times. But more than that, we have a lot of wellness benefits built into our practice. So not only do you get providers who are trained in lifestyle medicine, but we have health coaches, we have dietitians, we have a health psychologist, we have support groups that meet weekly virtually. And these are groups that talk about nutrition, health goals in general, mindfulness, our emotional health. And we also try to help our patients find local events, community events, and classes to, again, build those social support networks. So if you're interested in actually becoming a patient of Lifestyle Medical, we're in Southern California, we're in the Inland Empire, and we actually do free meet and greets to give you a chance to talk with one of the providers and see if we might be a good fit for you. So if you're interested in that, I highly recommend you email us or give us a call there. You can see the phone number at 951-742-7324. You can also check out our website here at lifestylemedical.com. All the providers have a intro video that you can get to know us a little bit as well. And you can read about other patient stories on our website about patients who really are regaining their health and experiencing greater joy in life. I also want to highlight that, if you're looking for a lifestyle medicine expert, there are resources that you can use to find that. And this is coming primarily from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which is the main professional organization that is driving this change in our healthcare system, getting the education and the training out there to healthcare professionals to understand how to do lifestyle medicine clinically. So if you go to connect.lifestylemedicine.org, you can actually click on this link here called Find a Lifestyle Medicine Expert, and then you'll be able to type in your zip code or your address and actually be able to find local lifestyle medicine experts. I do think that you might need a membership to ACLM. So just creating a profile online there to be able to access this. So I just want to show you in Southern California here, look at the number of resources that are available here. So I typed in my zip code in the Riverside area, and you can see all the number of lifestyle medicine experts and those that have undergone the board certification for lifestyle medicine. Lots of resources available here. So these are our other providers in our practice here, Dr. Wayne Dysinger, who owns the practice, and then Dr. Deepika Pandit, our female physician, and then Andrew Tyler is the physician assistant that we have here. They also work in our Redlands offices. So we have one office in Riverside and one in Redlands. I'm only in the Riverside office, but we do have providers in both locations. So I think it's a really exciting time to be in this space, to be in the lifestyle medicine space. And if you're a trainee or just someone who has an interest in getting into a health profession, I highly recommend you check out the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, get involved with that. We have an annual conference every year where all these passionate and pioneers in lifestyle medicine are getting together and talking about these things. So Chef AJ, I'm really excited to hear yesterday's talk with Dr. McDougall. I know he's been a huge pioneer in lifestyle medicine and was really the person who inspired me to get into lifestyle medicine. And so I'll take any questions that might have come up. And
Yes, we do have some. Have you met Dr. McDougall?
I have actually, and you know what? I forgot to include a picture of me and Dr. McDougall. This was 2 years ago, our last in-person conference, where we actually met in, let's see, I think it was Orlando, Florida. We had our conference, and I was able to meet with Dr. McDougall. I believe that was the same conference where he was awarded one of ACLM's, most prestigious awards for all of the work that he's done.
Yeah, I remember. I think I was part of a video that was submitted where we acknowledged him, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Dr. Deal, I believe, presented him with the award. Are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Oh, did you want to take it off screen share now so you could be a little bit bigger?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we do have some questions, but I also don't know much about you. I'd like to know your story, not just what you do now. When did you first discover a plant-based diet? I'm assuming you're plant-based or vegan yourself?
Yeah, I do follow a whole food plant-based diet, and I've been eating that way for about 10 years, actually. And so
your name is Herring.
I know it's a little bit confusing. I know I've never tried herring fish, but yeah, it was really that talk from John McDougall probably in my sophomore or third year of college, where I first discovered more plant-based eating and the power of a plant-based diet on someone's health. And it was at that point, it was like a light bulb that went off in my head. And I decided that was really how I wanted to practice medicine. I think in some ways it had always been there, but it really wasn't until that point that I just had more clarity. And so it was, even at that time, the lifestyle medicine movement was still picking up, I think, and it was a little bit hard for me to find resources at that time. But I did eventually find the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which ultimately plugged me into this amazing network and connected me with Dr. Dysinger and his practice as well. But yeah, I've been on this journey for a while. I went to medical school in Illinois, which is where I grew up. And then I eventually moved out to Southern California specifically for residency training at Loma Linda, which I'm sure a lot of your viewers know. Loma Linda is a blue zone, and so it was a very natural fit. And I was very, very fortunate to get this lifestyle medicine training at Loma Linda, and then continue to develop that now.
So were you plant-based before or after going to medical school?
Before, actually.
And how come? Like, where did you hear about it?
So it was really, again, from learning from John McDougall about the work he was doing. I know, his big thing is a starch-based diet. And that was what really got me into this. It just made so much sense to me. And I think in some ways that this way of eating was always kind of there for me. It was always what I would naturally gravitate towards anyways. But ultimately the food that we eat and we grow up with it's really determined on what we're exposed to, right? And so until we develop more insight about how nutrition really affects us and how it affects the environment, or if there's maybe a health scare. I think that there's typically some kind of catalyst, right? Some kind of trigger that gets people thinking about this and wanting to actually change their nutrition.
So, but where did you hear about it though? Like, I mean, where I grew up in Chicago, I never heard about a vegan or a plant-based diet.
Yeah, I know it. It was really just through after I came across Dr. McDougall's work, it just led me down this path, right? I kept learning more and more about these different pioneers in the lifestyle medicine space, like Dean Ornish, Joel Furman, Caldwell Esselstyn, all of these major pioneers who are using a more plant-based diet clinically. It just made so much sense to me. But before that, I was someone who grew up playing a lot of sports. I was very heavy into sports, and at that point, I wasn't certainly not thinking about how nutrition affects me from that standpoint, or how it affects my health. So most young people may not be thinking about this, but as that survey showed earlier, it does seem like the younger generations are looking more and more into this. They're looking for more holistic care. They care about the environment. So a plant-based diet is only a natural fit for that.
Did you go whole tofu or did you transition more slowly?
I think it was a little bit more slowly. I had a little bit of a hard time changing the foods I was eating, knowing how to do it in a way that was sustainable and really enjoyable, finding good substitutes. I think it does take practice. There are some people who can do this overnight, and I love working with patients who want to go all in like that. But from a practical standpoint, a sustainable standpoint, I think that a lot of patients tend to go the slower route, where they're really focused on adding in more and more of these whole plant foods, and they get used to eating it. Their taste buds change. They really develop a taste and appreciation for these foods.
Were you a fairly healthy eater, even though you weren't plant-based before you transitioned, or were you more of a standard American diet eater?
Definitely more of a standard American diet eater. Growing up in the Midwest is more of a meat and potato diet, which is pretty much what I ate up until I was about, maybe 19 or 20 years old. And so that's all I knew, right? That's all most people, that's all they're really exposed to. So I think that is calling for action too, in many ways, from a public health standpoint, getting more and more information out there, teaching young kids how to eat for their health.
When you change your diet that young, you probably have not yet developed really any lifestyle diseases, right? So did you notice any difference when you went plant-based?
Yeah, so I actually, in college, I tended to have headaches fairly frequently. And that was one of the main things that I noticed actually when I changed my nutrition, is I really did not seem to suffer from some of these migraines were so intense that, we've all experienced this, where sometimes you just have to literally sleep it off and be in a dark room. I really noticed that I was getting headaches much frequently, but at that point, I really didn't have any obvious health conditions, at least that I knew of. But from that standpoint, addressing the headaches and migraines was a huge improvement in my health. So it's amazing what, some of your viewers, they may have one or two things that really do affect their quality of life, where these different lifestyle areas can make a huge difference. And you may not even know how good you can feel until you work on these things.
Wow, that's great. Were you able to influence any friends, family members, or fellow medical students?
Yeah, so I think in at least the Midwest at that time, I think that more and more people are becoming more open-minded to this, but a lot of people didn't really understand, I think, what I was doing, or really the significance behind it, the why behind it, because to them, I didn't really have any obvious, medical problems. So the question is, why would you make what seemed like a pretty drastic change? And I would always say, well, I'm doing this from a health standpoint, from a preventive health standpoint, right? Because the reality is a lot of chronic diseases, even though they may not be obvious in maybe your 20s and 30s, a lot of chronic disease starts at a very young age, especially cardiovascular disease can start even as young as 8 to 10 years old. You can actually see little fatty streaks inside of young kids' arteries. And they've seen this on autopsies of young kids, that it's definitely that the disease state starts at a very young age.
Yep, that's so true. So did you have to learn how to cook?
I did, absolutely. And that's probably the most joy I've gotten out of this, is learning how to cook. You really learn how to be self-sufficient here. And it's fun to me. It's really fun to try out cooking with different ingredients, different spices, learning how to make these foods taste good. I think that's one of the biggest challenges people face, right? When they're trying to incorporate more of these foods, they're coming from a place of foods, processed foods that are in the standard American diet that are highly processed. They're created in a way to make them highly palatable, right? It's like the perfect combination of things like processed or refined carbohydrates and sugar, oil, and salt, right? Think of like a potato chip. It's like the perfect combination of these foods. You're not just going to eat, one or two potato chips, right? So learning how to make these foods taste good is fun to me. And I've used a lot of your resources, Chef AJ, and a lot of your recipes. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. You talked about exercise earlier. Was that something you always did?
Yeah, it's definitely something I've always did. And that's probably been, as far as I can remember, the foundation of a lot of my health and a lot of what I grew up with participating in sports. Learning how to exercise for athletic performance is something I learned at a pretty young age, and it's something I still do. And so it's one of my ways to decompress, to manage stress in my life. And it's also a good way to build connections in your life.
How do you find the time?
Well, I think that you have to make the time, right? And it's not going to be perfect every day. It's not going to be ideal every week. So making the time for it, I think we can all make even 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, whether it's going for a short walk, doing body weight exercises, doing like yoga, Pilates, things like that. There's always a space there that you can do it. And this is why I always talk about trying to integrate this into your daily life, right? Maybe you're someone who can't dedicate an hour to go to the gym, but during your work day, your just your routine day, you can break that up with these microbursts of activity, going on a short walk, even just finding videos on YouTube to do a little bit of yoga, stretching, flexibility. I love the desk-ercise, literally exercises you do at your desk. So it's pretty often that when patients come to see me, I actually will help demonstrate some of these exercises. We'll do chair squats together, and then often they don't come back. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow. Well, who is your typical patient?
So I see patients of all ages, anywhere from, I have a few adolescent patients, but most of them are in their 30s all the way up to even their 80s or early 90s. So I pretty much see adults of every age.
That's great. How did you hook up with Dr. Dysinger?
So I knew of Dr. Dysinger through the Lifestyle Medicine Network, through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. But when I moved out to Loma Linda to start my residency, I was so fortunate. I actually did a rotation with Dr. Dysinger in my first month of residency, which was just incredible. So I spent time with him. I could see how he was actually doing lifestyle medicine clinically. And, we kept in contact throughout residency. And then when it came to looking for a job, we just decided that, that he felt that this would be a great fit. And I absolutely just love working at Lifestyle Medical.
That's amazing. So are you board certified in lifestyle medicine? Is that what you are?
Yeah, I am. So every year they offer a board certification for lifestyle medicine. And it's primarily geared for, you know, medical providers, doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, physician assistants. They have one for health coaches, I believe, and they're continuing to develop um, certifications for other health professionals. So we're really getting the lifestyle medicine into all different types of health professionals. So yeah, I just encourage your listeners to really check that out and see, you know, is there a board certification for me that's available right now?
But you have to be board certified in lifestyle medicine and something else, right? Right? Or am I wrong? Like, do you have to be like internal medicine or something
It,
else in addition?
exactly, yeah. So you do have to have, as of right now, a primary board certification, things like family medicine, preventive medicine, internal medicine. So really any medical doctor who has a primary board certification can get board certified in lifestyle medicine. I think there's work being done in place right now to hopefully get lifestyle medicine to actually be like a primary board certification over time. I think that that would be an amazing thing, and I think that that would attract a lot of young people who are thinking about going into medicine, that there is a viable path for them to actually do this.
Wow, that's fantastic. How many people were in your, I guess, do you call it class or in your, that became lifestyle medicine doctors with you?
So I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I believe that there were hundreds, if not maybe a couple thousand, of people who become board certified every year now. So it's growing every single year since it was the first class of board certified lifestyle medicine providers, I think, was just a couple of years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So we're pretty new into this, but there's been a huge increase in the number of people that are looking for this.
Wow. Is it, so is working with Dr. Dysinger at Lifestyle Medicine, is this like your first job as a doctor?
It is my first job. So, I mean, can you believe it? Like my
You
dream
kind of hit the
job.
jackpot, you know?
Yeah, I did. I'm very, very blessed, very fortunate to be working with Dr. Dysinger, and you know, our practice is continuing to grow. You know, I'm taking new patients still. I think that the other providers panels are a little bit fuller now, but I'm definitely taking on new patients.
Well,
So
I've been posting a link and it's also in the show note if people want to make a virtual or an in-person appointment with you if they live in the state of California.
thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few questions I'm seeing in the chat. One is from Linda. Do you also care about the ethics of eating this way, not just the health benefits?
Yeah, I do care a lot about the ethics of this. And I think that the more I've gotten into it, the more it's become clear to me that the ethical standpoint of this, you know, only makes sense, right? I mean, I think as human beings, we can all relate to the fact that we don't want to cause unnecessary suffering. And the way our current food production system is right now, things like, you know, the large scale factory farming, the inhumane treatment of animals is important to me. But I think I did get into it from a health standpoint in the beginning. But the ethical side of it is also very important to me.
Well, either way, you got in it so young. And like I always say, the animals don't care why we're not eating them. So
Right.
perfect. Diana says, do you suggest a specific time of day to exercise?
No, I think that, you know, the science hasn't shown that there's an ideal time of day to work out. The best time of day to work out is when you feel you'll be most likely to, right? So is that first thing in the morning when you get up, or is it some other time during the day? The only thing I would caution on there is if we're working out a little bit too late in the day, too close to bedtime, it can affect your ability to actually wind down and get into that more deep restorative sleep. So usually I tell patients to try to exercise as close to bed as maybe, you know, at most about 2 or 3 hours or so.
You know, I find if I don't exercise first thing in the morning, I just won't do it. You've heard this concept about eating the frog, terrible analogy, but because I don't like it, if I don't do it first, it's not going to get done. And I find that it's with so many people, if they don't do it almost first thing in the morning, it's just too easy to delay. And then guess what? You never do it.
Yeah. And that's a really important concept for behavior change. You really want to think about setting yourself up for success. So is it working out first thing in the morning? When it comes to nutrition, it's the same thing, right? If you really want to change your nutrition, you have to set yourself up for success. You have to surround yourself with these foods and really give it a chance, which means buying these foods, right? Grocery shopping for these foods and having more of them on hand.
Absolutely. So Elizabeth says, does your practice accept Medicare?
Yes, we do. Yeah, and we have a lot of Medicare patients, all types of Medicare. I want to mention too, our practice is also a membership-based practice, which means you get more than just the doctor, right? From the slide earlier, we have all these other members of our team that we give you access to, and having Medicare actually gives you a free membership on top of that.
Yeah, that's great. I know. Here's a question that was submitted in advance. I almost forgot about it. This is from Keisha. What would you advise someone to do if their blood pressure is around 144 over 104, their cholesterol is over 200, and triglycerides over 300? I know the answer. Make an appointment with Dr. Herring of Lifestyle Medicine as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So connecting with a provider who's trained in lifestyle medicine is a great place to start. But I think that there's a lot of things you can do by yourself, right? Just getting the education about this. So in terms of chronic disease reversal, we know that these lifestyle areas, especially optimizing our nutrition, specific nutrition plans that have a lot of good evidence for lowering blood pressure naturally, are things like, yes, a whole food plant-based dietary pattern, but also something called the DASH diet, which is essentially a plant predominant diet, can lower your blood pressure naturally. Having a regular exercise routine. So again, any exercise that you enjoy is the one that you're most likely to do. Finding ways to better manage your stress, having a routine there. But there's also, from a medical standpoint, we want to look into other reasons why you might have high blood pressure, such as like sleep apnea, for example. So talking with the provider, getting an assessment of your sleep, and then you might want to get some basic labs as well to look into other potential reasons why you might have high blood pressure.
Thanks. And Tina wanted to know if you accept other insurances and if you're able to say what a typical appointment might cost.
Sure. So we accept pretty much all major insurances, commercial insurances, and Medicare. So the best thing you can do is give our office a call and discuss that. So, we take your insurance, and whatever your typical copay is for an office visit, it is how much the office visit would typically be.
That's great. And like you said, guys, I'm a member of Lifestyle Medical. It's very inexpensive, and they have cooking demos every week with Nan, and they have just all these there's all these things they could do. They don't have to, but you offer all these classes all week long.
Yeah. So a lot of our patients, they love having those extra tools, right? And again, I think the biggest benefit of those tools is building this community around working on health goals, because it can be challenging to do this alone. So working on it with other people who are on a similar journey as you is only going to support you.
I'm just curious, do you guys have hospital privileges anywhere? Like if your patients need hospitalization? I never asked Dr. Dysinger there because I just always assume I'm not going anyway. You know what I mean? So like, even if you tell me I'm not going, because I was in the hospital once and I got to tell you, I didn't like it.
Yeah, and we do. We utilize some of our local hospital systems in Riverside and Redlands, where we would direct our patients if they needed to. But if, say, you were a patient who is not near the clinic and you want to be more of a virtual patient. So I do have some patients who I only see virtually. It would be a good idea to know what your insurance, which hospital systems would actually be in your, your network for your particular insurance. And those are the ones that you would want to go to.
Right. So what's it like? Do y'all bring your lunch to work? And do you and Dr. Geisinger and Dr. Penn, do you guys like all eat together? I'm just curious because obviously y'all eat very healthy, I'm sure.
Yeah, we do our best. I typically do bring my lunch to work.
Tell me what your lunch is. Tell me what your breakfast was. Tell me what it's probably you haven't had lunch yet, what your lunch is and what your dinner is going to be. Because it's not just you were asking because you're a doctor. Almost every guest on the almost 1000th episode of this show gets asked, what do you eat in a day?
Breakfast is definitely my favorite meal of the day. And I pretty much have the same breakfast every day. And it's a big bowl of
You're going to say oatmeal. I know it. It's always oatmeal. I never understood this world's love affair with oatmeal. I cannot stand oatmeal, the texture. I hate oatmeal. No offense.
well, none taken. But yes, it is oatmeal. And, I put lots of good things with there, like ground flaxseed, almond butter or peanut butter, a big cup of mixed berries, maybe some hemp seeds or walnuts on top of there. So I actually, talking about setting yourself up for success, this is the meal that I'm probably the most successful with because frankly, I prepare it the night before every single night, or at least every work day. So it is more of like an overnight oats that I'll warm up in the morning. But this idea of meal planning is another really powerful tool. And then, lunch would be typically maybe some kind of pasta or like a grain bowl with lots of tofu or tempeh, vegetables and beans in there. That's one of my favorite lunches. And then dinner would be something similar, right? Getting in lots of the whole grains. I'm a big fan of starchy foods as well. So even regular potatoes, sweet potatoes, some of those starchier foods I find to be very satiating. And I think it's a really useful food for patients who are working on weight loss because it's so satiating and you do get a lot of nutrition out of literally just plain old potatoes, which I'm hearing Dr. John McDougall in the background, like clapping and maybe appreciating that I'm talking about that. And I'm pretty sure Chef AJ, that was a big part of your journey as well, right?
Absolutely. No starch, no satiety. Had to learn it the hard way, ditch the nuts and seeds and bread. And yeah, potatoes rule. People that are like afraid to eat starch, it's just, they're never going to get healthy and slim, in my opinion. I don't see it.
Yeah. So, my day-to-day eating is overall pretty consistent, I would say. And I have a couple of meals that I tend to turn to from the Forks Over Knives app that was developed. So lots of great recipes on there. I showed that lentil chili of yours. And then another one that I really like was actually a recipe from Heather McDougall. She has a spinach lasagna recipe on there as well that I find is really good. And it's really fun to make that because you get to find ways to substitute more healthful ingredients and actually get the taste and consistency of a typical lasagna. So like the ricotta part of that is made with tofu, right? So you're blending tofu with the Italian seasonings and most people would not know the difference.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Heather's going to be a guest on the show in 3 weeks from today. So that's fantastic. Wow. So that's so cool that you know how to make your own food. I can't tell you.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most useful tools that I've learned, especially to be able to eat how you want to eat, right?
You have to, right?
You do. You definitely do.
So have you been able to turn any family and friends recently now that you're a lifestyle medicine doctor?
Not turn them completely, no, but I think that that they're definitely aware of this, and they're aware of the importance of including more of these whole plant foods, getting in more plant protein sources, things like that. So, it's I that's the one thing is I think we have to really respect, everyone's on their own journey, right? And when I'm working with patients, I let them know I really respect where you're at and where you'd like to go with this. We can talk through what the science really shows about nutrition, but ultimately we do want to find an eating plan that's going to be sustainable for you, but also therapeutic.
So where does I imagine that all of you at Lifestyle Medicine have the same beliefs about things like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but where do you guys stand on things like alcohol and caffeine?
So alcohol, the science is continuing to change with alcohol, right? I think years ago there was some evidence that said that having even a moderate amount of alcohol, like red wine, for example, seemed to maybe have some cardiovascular benefits, but the more recent science is showing that that's just not true. And there really is no safe level of alcohol consumption, even small amounts. We know that it affects our cognitive health, our long-term cognitive health, our sleep. So there really is no safe level of alcohol consumption. And as far as caffeine, there's a lot of good evidence that having a little bit of caffeine every day does support your health, especially if it's things like black coffee, different tea sources. I'm a huge fan of actually matcha green tea. That's really my go-to caffeine source because there's so much nutrition built into it. It's really an ideal source.
But Dr. McDougall said yesterday he did a hypertension lesson. He said that coffee raises your blood pressure.
Right. And it's important to know who you're working with, right? So for some patients, maybe they do want to eliminate caffeine. We know that too much caffeine is going to raise your blood pressure. So again, it really should be individualized to each person.
Yep. I just admire how you doctors are able to be so, what's the word, meeting people where they are. Cause it's like, I want to meet people where I see them in 10 years, it's like, just do it. Cause when you've done it as long as me, 45 years, it's so hard when you see people just falling apart because of things that were preventable. And, when you think about chronic disease, pretty much all of it's lifestyle, right?
It is in fact, at least 80% of that is directly related to lifestyle. And then if we look specifically at the lifestyle, it really boils down to these lifestyle areas I just talked about, with nutrition being number one in terms of predicting poor long-term health.
I just had an idea, but it's a surprise, I'm surprised with all these hundreds of people watching, but you sound like you're really a fan of Dr. McDougall,
Mhm.
Have you ever told him how you felt? The reason I'm asking is because he comes on my show frequently, but he's also coming on in his birthday this year. And maybe you could make a surprise little appearance and just tell him that you went into medicine because of him. I bet you that would make him feel really good. Guys, don't tell him. Hopefully he's not watching today or we just ruined the surprise. I don't think he watches me though, to tell you the truth. But if you do, see how I'm always thinking of you. What do you think of that?
I love that. I love that idea. I actually I mentioned this to him when I met him at the ACLM conference a few years ago. So, so yeah, I would love to do something like that.
Well, just so you know, his birthday is May 17th. So maybe block off 11 o'clock. Well, he usually comes out, he usually starts at 10 because he takes several hours. So maybe block that off for, a few minutes on your calendar. And that might be nice because we did a whole thing last year where it was a surprise and we had Dr. Dean Ornish and Colin Campbell, but maybe we can get some of the younger doctors like you that he maybe isn't as familiar with to give him some, birthday love.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Count me in.
All right. Well, thank you. Hopefully you like balsamic vinegar because every guest on Chef AJ Live, the first time they're on, if they live in the United States, gets 2 free bottles of California balsamic vinegar. Thank you, Thomas, for sponsoring the show. So I'll get you an email where you can choose whatever flavor you want.
I love balsamic. I'm ready for it.
Great. Well, thank you. And I really appreciate the work you're doing and especially doing it at such a young age, because as much as we love Dr. McDougall and Dr. Esselstyn, they're going to retire someday and somebody's got to fill their shoes. So it may as well be you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. It was a pleasure getting to know you, and say hi to everybody in the office. I know Dr. Deisinger's booked for a few months in the future. He'll be back. And anytime anybody from Lifestyle Medicine wants to come on, whether it's you or Nan or one of the doctors, you always have a place on my show as long as I'm doing my show.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Well, thank you. If I was a doctor, that's the kind I would be, lifestyle medicine doctor. So perfect. Thanks everybody for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back in about 3 hours. I have a show at 3 p.m. today with Jade Turnquist, and she's going to be making barbecue jackfruit with coleslaw. Have you ever had jackfruit? It's really quite good.
Yeah, I have.
It's like pulled pork. I mean, when you put the sauce on it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good. What's your very favorite? Okay, here, I'm going to ask one more fun question. You're being executed for a crime you obviously didn't commit on death row. What's your last meal going to be?
Oh man, my last meal. Well, if we take health out of the equation.
Yeah, of course. What are you going to do? You're going to eat healthy on your last meal? I already know I'm having nachos, like real nachos. I mean, not real, like in real dairy nachos, but like I'm going to have the fake vegan cheese and the fake vegan sour cream and the guacamole and the olives. And, that's what I'm going to have is nachos.
Yeah, I would probably say a full course meal of vegan pizza with a side of the vegan nachos, and then a giant vegan chocolate chip cookie with some dairy-free ice cream, and I'm good to go.
Okay, good. Okay, well, it's good to know in case anything ever happens. No, just kidding. Thanks so much. It was a pleasure meeting you, Dr. Herring.
Okay, likewise.
Bye.